So, have you ever been like this? Only to wind up feeling like this?
What the hell are you talking about? Who are you talking to?
Well, that's basically what happened at the Boston Free Speech Rally. Although the event originally had many of the same names headlining it as the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, the hardline white supremacists, neo Nazis, and KKK members that were some of the speakers at Charlottesville dropped off the radar faster than a Russian MiG jet with engine failure. To be fair, the posters and apparently the intent of the Boston rally seemed to be identical. Um, However, the violence and the death of Heather Heyer made the Boston rally change in almost every appreciable way. Unite the Right became a freedom of speech rally. Now, I have to say that I have a firm belief in free speech for neo Nazis just as much as I have that free speech belief for ultra uber liberals and everyone in between. The First Amendment covers all Americans, regardless of what sort of idiocy they spout. However, what was to be sort of a follow up to the Unite the Right rally, the free speech rally didn't really have a neo Nazi, KKK member, or white supremacist to be found. It seems they all dropped out. In their place were four headliners: Kyle Chapman, famously known on the internet as Based Stickman, who became a walking meme in the so called Battle of Berkeley, where several right wing conservative speakers were not allowed to speak at scheduled UC Berkeley events, which sparked violent confrontations and led to millions in property damage. Joe Biggs, a conservative reporter and retired Army Staff Sergeant, who's a correspondent for BAM, Borderland Alternative Media. Biggs has covered riots since Ferguson and covers other issues such as the border, drugs, illegal immigration, and terrorism. Of the four headliners, these two were the most right-leaning. The remaining were both seeking federal political office. You had a senatorial candidate, Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, noted for his controversial claim that he invented email, spoke against GMOs and the company of Monsanto. Ayyadurai fought against racism in South Africa as part of MIT's coalition against the apartheid. Ayyadurai spoke at the rally for love and peace. Also seeking office for Congress this time was Samson Rachapi. Now, Rachapi is a libertarian who told CBS News, "I am not a white supremacist. I am not a neo Nazi. I'm not a member of the KKK." Rachapi even went further, saying that if I feel these people are really extremists and that they're saying and starting to spout hate speech, I'm siding with the protesters, as long as the protesters are not also extremists. So, what started out to be a sort of Unite the Right Part 2 wound up being more of a very small group of conservative and libertarian that spoke for less than an hour, and at no time did anyone use the terms KKK, alt right, white power, blood and soil, or any of the other racist slogans. One of the keynote speakers, Dr. Ayodhya, was born in Bombay, India, and moved to America at 7 years old and became a U.S. citizen. While the political leanings of Kyle Chapman and Joe Biggs are certainly on the right, there isn't any tie to white nationalism, the alt right, the KKK, apparently. They certainly would not be marching with Antifa, but they're not donning the Waffen SS uniforms either. All of which leads us to August 19th, 2017, Boston, Massachusetts. The nation and the world were expecting another Charlottesville, and everyone seemed ready for war. Boston Mayor Marty Walsh held a press conference the night before the rally. With him was Boston Police Commissioner William B. Evans, the Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker, representatives from the FBI, Boston Transit, and many others. Mayor Walsh was very candid about his views of the rally, saying, quote, "The courts have made it abundantly clear. They have the right to gather. no matter how repugnant their views are, and also saying, quote, I don't want them here. Let me be clear. I don't want them here. And if I could not have let them here without a permit, I absolutely would not have given them a permit. This is certainly understandable for the mayor of a major U.S. city after seeing the mayhem that occurred in Charlottesville. Police Commissioner Evans seemed to be of exactly the same mindset, saying, quote, there will be zero tolerance for any violence tomorrow. We will not tolerate misbehavior, any violence, or any vandalism whatsoever. The Boston Police Department, the Massachusetts State Police, the FBI, everyone was ready for a battle they feared would come the next day. They were not alone in preparing. Approximately 40,000 people showed up in the streets of Boston on August 19th, ready to face the alt-right. Antifa, BLM, anarcho-communists, socialists of every stripe were there to shut the fascists down. They marched down the streets chanting, no Trump, no KKK, no fascist USA, no way, and Black Lives Matter, along with whose streets? Our streets. And we have the people, we have the power. A woman standing near a communist flag wearing a Che Guevara shirt was exhorting a group about the evils of the United States barbarically bombing the peace loving people of North Korea in the Korean War, which is why North Korea needed its nuclear program to keep the U.S. at bay. Things were, shall we say, rather heated. The cops were ready for this alt-right. The Antifa was ready for this alt-right. BLM was ready for this alt-right. It seems that 40,000 people were ready for the alt-right. The only problem was the alt-right weren't there. The people speaking at the event could hardly be called alt-right. This is by no means saying that there weren't any card-carrying members of the KKK in Boston on that day. But if there were, they remained very, very discreet about it. At first, the massive crowd seemed confused that there was no racist army to meet them. Then, for a time, they were celebratory, claiming victory. However, it seemed that the lust for revenge for Charlottesville was still very much alive in the masses' psyche because soon they began growing restless, singling out a few people wearing MAGA hats and chanting, shame, shame, shame. These incidents were few and isolated, however, and it seemed like Boston had managed to dodge a huge bullet. However, it was then, when the Boston PD told the crowds that the rally was over and tried to clear the thoroughly blocked streets for regular traffic, that the mood shifted again, just like that. The us versus them had originally been the alt-right versus the far left. Now it was Antifa, BLM, and every other group against the alt-right versus the police. What had been and could have remained a peaceful turnout, well, it became violent. Over 33 arrests were made as police clashed with the crowd. This, however, is what puzzles me. Was all this a simple miscommunication? Couldn't the rally organizers have informed the mayor of the change of speakers, tone, and ideology, so the mayor could have then went to another press conference, telling both the people of Boston and of the world that the alt-right was no longer a threat to the city? Or had everyone crossed the Rubicon at this point? Was a battle of some sort of inevitable? And if so, how can it be that Mayor Walsh was able to say this about the protesters?
So I want to thank all of the people that came out today. I want to thank all the people that came out to share that love, that message of love, not hate, to fight back on racism, to fight back on anti-Semitism, to fight back on the white supremacists that were coming to our city, on the Nazis that were coming to our city. I want to thank everyone that came here today. I want to thank everyone that came here and expressed themselves in such a positive, great manner today.
And even more incredibly, how is Police Commissioner Evans having to say this
You know, also, there was a lot of talk in the week leading up about bottles being thrown with urine at our offices. And I wanted to make sure that they, you know, that you had to have a good arm to basically throw and get at them. So, you know, we basically wanted them separated. And I'm sorry to report, we did have some bottles thrown at our offices that did have urine in it. A couple of our officers were hit with that. They were hit with a lot of stuff today, and I'm very proud of the job they did, and it goes to the professionalism of this department.
And then incredibly also have this to say about the exact same people.
Great day for the city, and I'm really impressed. We probably had 40,000 people out here, you know, standing tall against hatred and bigotry in our city, and that's a good feel.
This whole thing leaves me completely baffled. Don't get me wrong, only 33 arrests from a crowd of over 40,000 is a tiny percentage. But the protesters did attack the police. They did throw stones and bricks. They did throw bottles of urine on the police. The fact that the protesters had most likely filled those bottles with urine for the alt-right makes no difference, does it? I mean, Antifa did this to one of their very own simply because they thought he looked like a neo-Nazi. Explain that.
You do not hit somebody that you assume is a neo-Nazi. You cannot do that. He is on our side. Do not do that.
Just sit down for a
Stay
minute.
where you are, man. Go get you a medic. Some water?
Yeah, I've got rubbing alcohol.
You're gonna need to wipe that out. I can't. Like, hold the tissue on there.
Well, what are you here for today, and what are you expecting? Are you going to stay around?
I'm not exactly sure right now.
This whole event has left me with several thoughts. First and foremost, I am immeasurably happy that no one lost their lives in Boston that day. We could have had another Charlottesville, and we could have had another fatality, and that's unthinkable. However, I am still completely for free speech. Whether that free speech is being yelled at me on a street corner by some Hitler Youth wannabe or some communist socialist telling me just how totally shitty it is to live in the United States. Both of them have the right to say these things to me, just like I have the right to ignore them both and go eat nachos. However, while the speakers at the rally were technically allowed to speak, they had to do so very quickly and had to leave with police protection to ensure their safety. They had a permit that said they could speak from noon until 3. They were done by 12:59. So I guess what I'm asking is, was speech free on Boston Common that day? Was it truly free? And yet another thought, and this to me is perhaps the most perplexing, is that there were any arrests or assaults on officers at all. The 40,000 had won. Why was the rest of the day not spent in celebration at some of Boston's many bars, or if you're more civically minded, the endless array of historical sites? Instead, after only a brief interlude of celebration, the protesters and the police fell on one another, and a day that could have ended in complete peace instead ended with scenes of violence like this.
Along there, pulls her anyway. Let's watch this. You can see her flag wound up on the ground. And this is the kind of thing that we...
Two things about that clip we just watched. One, I feel horribly for that poor woman being dragged across the ground like that. That's not how Americans act. And secondly, I don't know if you picked up on it, but there was a horn that sounded thrice. And as you know from my intro and my outro, it is supposedly Gjallarhorn sounding 3 times to signify the beginning of Ragnarok. I didn't place that there. That was already there. As far as all the arrests, I am in no way speaking in absolutes here. As I've mentioned, out of 40,000, only 33 people were arrested, 4 of which involved men with weapons. However, the violence was widespread enough. Are there any answers? My working theory is this. Once you have built up enough belief in the monster, you have to make him real, whether he is or not. On a footnote, although it's somewhat related, the flags have been a matter of contention during rallies. Neo-Nazis have been packing the swastika, the Confederate banner, things of that nature. I noticed that the flag of Kekistan has actually been, for some reason, lumped in with that because they say it's based on the Nazi Kriegsmarine flag. The flag's actually based on a flag created by the typo negative lead singer and bassist Pete Steele for the non-existent country of Vinland, which is what the Norse explorers called North America. Steele designed the flag to copy several of the flags of the Norse countries. What really gets me about this is that after decrying anyone who had such a flag, a neo-Nazi, a white supremacist, being in the KKK by Antifa, they seem to have reversed themselves completely and have adopted that flag exactly to where it is even more closely resemblance of the Kriegsmarine flag. I don't quite understand their motives there at all. Perhaps they're trying to co-opt it back. I don't know. Maybe you can figure it out. I certainly can.